Hi, my name is Charles Metcalf, and I'm recording this PowerPoint presentation on nepotism. Is it unethical or is it business as usual? For my Christian social ethics for the workplace class at Bethel Seminary, St. Paul, Minnesota, for the summer term. I'd like to begin with the origin of the word nepotism. Nepotism comes from the Latin word nepos, meaning nephew or grandchild, and refers to the granting of employment to family members regardless of merit. For this project, I interviewed two women. One works as a supervisor in a supply chain department at a service-oriented business, and the other is the deputy director of a behavioral health department. Nepotism is nothing new in the corporate world or in the church. In fact, the Bible is laden with nepotism within its scriptures. For instance, Joseph was instructed by Pharaoh to carry out a form of nepotism, telling young Joseph to give the best land and food to his father and brothers. You'll find that in Genesis chapter 47, verses 1 through 12. After the wall was rebuilt, Nehemiah put his brother in charge of Jerusalem. Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 2. King David put his cousin Amasa as commander over his army in place of Joab. 2 Samuel chapter 19, verse 13. These same types of things also play out in the corporate world just the same. People get jobs, positions, promotions, and raises based on nepotism, simply because they are connected by family or other special relationship to certain other people. From the church perspective, the Bible is clear that favoritism is not God's will for our lives. Favoritism is contradictory with God's character. Romans chapter 2 verse 11 tells us that God does not show favoritism. Ephesians 6 and 9 tells us that all are equal before him. And in Colossians 3:25 teaches us that teaches of God's fairness in judgment. The Bible teaches that Christians are not to show favoritism, as we see in James chapter 2, verse 1. My brothers, as believers in our glorious Jesus Christ, don't show favoritism. In ethical questions or situations where Scripture does not give explicit instructions, we should look for principles that can be applied to the situation and do the right thing. When I got to my core question concerning my chosen topic, I asked both of my interviewees, what is your thought on nepotism in the workplace? Is it an ethical or moral dilemma? The first response I got by the supervisor was nepotism gives the impression of an ethical question as you set the expectation that in order to move within the workplace, you have to be related. But it also calls into question your morals if you're willing to hire a candidate only because of their relationship with you as opposed to their ability to do a good job. My other response was nepotism is both an ethical and moral dilemma. It is demoralizing, especially to cultures that are not the dominant culture. From an ethics perspective, everyone should be afforded an equal opportunity but nepotism precludes equality. Morally, the consideration is generally the same. Ethical decision-making is concerned with matters of right and wrong, good and bad. That comes from Scott B. Ray and Keenman L. Wong in their book titled Beyond Integrity, A Judeo-Christian Approach to Business Ethics on page 39. Ethical theory provides a system of rules or principles that guide us in making decisions. That comes from Peter G. Norhaus in his book titled Leadership, Theory and Practice, 7th edition, on page 330. The Bible has many scriptures that address ethical and moral dilemmas. James 1:13 through 14 says, "Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desires." Higher levels of moral reasoning make it possible for the authentic leader to make decisions that transcend individual differences and align individuals toward a common goal. They enable leaders to be selfless and make judgments that serve the greater good of the group, organization, or community. Most people have a desire to contribute. They have personality and potential. And if they are typecast like actors and are limited in their opportunity to contribute to much needed creativity and innovation, the result is underutilization of human capital. In his article titled Body of Christ or Family Business, Nepotism in the Church, David Kowalski says, at the very least, the practice of nepotism gives the appearance to outsiders that the pastor is using unfair hiring practices and building a family kingdom at the church's expense. Kowalski continues saying, if a pastor's family member is truly qualified for a staff position, they should be able to find similar work at a different church. If they cannot find similar work elsewhere, they are likely not the most qualified candidate for the position in question. And the same can be said of leaders in a private/corporate setting. It is a leader's responsibility to set the tone, to learn to accept the differences of people, and to foster an environment where different people can contribute as part of the whole and achieve unity in diversity. As by Ray and Wong on page 278. A servant leader would put followers first. They would use the defining characteristics of sine qua non. They would use their actions and words to clearly demonstrate to followers that their concerns are a priority, including placing followers' interest and success ahead of those of the leader. That's from Nordhaus on page 234. What are my recommendations concerning the ethical issue of nepotism? Well, I'm glad you asked. Those who find themselves in these positions as the ones being afforded the nepotism, suggesting the names of other capable candidates for opportunities and sharing positive comments about team members' performance and other inclusive behaviors can and would be useful. For business owners or those in a high management/hiring position or senior pastor, surrounding yourself with non-relatives is the greatest move or decision one can make. If one is an employee, one thing that could be done is to document specific incidents of any perceived nepotism. Leaders must be more than individuals of high character. They must lead others to behave ethically. That's from Ray and Wong on page 457. And in closing, nepotism is just simply wrong and hurtful, and it should not be practiced. It should have no place in the workplace or in a private/corporate setting.